It's time to sew our quilt top together. And we're going to start by laying out the rows. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to lay out my quilt squares in the order that I'm going to sew them together. Now remember, we put them in order, laid them out on the bed and put them in the order that I want them in when the quilt is put together. So on top is our first row, and so I stack the pieces up starting from left to right. So I'm gonna spread these out on the table here in the order that I want them. The next thing I'm gonna do is take a look at the drawing that I have, that I did at the very beginning when we were planning our quilt project. And as you can see, I'm going to join the pieces by using the white strips. So I'm going to put those strips where they'll be sewn into the quilt. So here are my strips that are cut to fit. Now these are 4.5 by 12.5, so that they should fit right in. So I'm going to just at this point lay them in the right order. Then I'm going to be sewing everything together. There's one other step that I want to do. Now this is a step that could have been done earlier, but I like to press my pieces right before I sew them together so that they're freshly pressed. So I'm going to take the first block and take it over to the ironing board and press the seams down. Now the first thing I'm going to do is turn the quilt top upside down and make sure that the seams are pressed toward the darker fabric. Now that won't be possible for all the seams, but I'm going to press them the way I want them to lay. Now I'm going to turn it right side up, and I'm going to kind of pull the pieces apart, pull them tight, so that I don't get any little tucks here in between the pieces. I want them to lay flat. Now, when I have it pressed, I'm going to take it back over here to my table and slide my pieces over in order. And I'm going to take my big ruler that I used to cut the pieces out, and I'm going to make sure that my square is 12.5 inches. And if there are any rough edges, I'm going to smooth those out. Do a little trimming. Here I'm just primarily trimming some of the threads off. But if you can see, some of the pieces that I didn't cut exactly, I'm going to square those up. It's very difficult to cut the pieces precisely and sew exactly a 1/4 inch seam. Or it's difficult for me anyway. Okay, so now I have this piece ready to sew together. I'm going to go ahead and press this white strip. And I'm going to get started sewing these together. And here again, you want to be sure that you're getting as close to a 1/4 inch seam allowance, as close to a 1/4 inch seam as you can get. Now I'm going to press this seam down and go ahead and press the next square. Now my white strip was a little bit too long, so I'm going to go ahead and just trim that. And I don't think that piece needs to be trimmed. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this one to the white strip. I need to trim this just a little bit. I'm going to press the next strip and the next square. I guess you see that my little helpers have reported for duty. Just have to be sure his little nose doesn't get pressed. This one needs a little trimming. It looks like I didn't do such a good job of either cutting out my pieces or sewing them together. Okay, can I have my quilt pieces? So we have the first row sewn together. And I have one of my little connecting white strips that's a little bit longer. So I'm going to trim that. So this is what the first row looks like. And I'm going to lay it to the side. We want to be sure and keep our rows in order. I'm going to lay it to the side. and pull out the next row. And we'll do it the same way. Lay out the squares in the right order. Then we'll add the white strips. And then we'll start by pressing the first square and trimming if necessary. And then attach it to the white connecting piece. And then go on to the other squares. And then we'll continue till we've finished all of them. And then next time we're going to sew the rows together. The main thing is just to make sure the squares are in the order that we determined we wanted them, and that the rows are in the right order. So next time we will sew the rows together and attach any outside borders that we have. I have a white border that goes around the entire quilt. And we'll, after we sew our rows together and attach them with the white strips, then we'll sew on the borders. See you next time.